That's major.
Ach, wie lang?
Ach, lang meines Herzens Weite, Jesus mein Ziel. That's good enough. Hi,
so.
My name is Stephen Johnston.
And my name is Jesse Titus.
And you're listening to a very special episode of American Brews and Tunes.
Heck yeah, it is.
This is episode number 79.
Oh, yeah.
I believe last week was a one-off.
It was, you're right.
We did Blink-182's Neighborhoods. And next week, we will return to our regular format.
Yep.
But this week, for episode 79, do we have a treat for you or what?
Or what?
No. The answer is not or what. This is definitely a treat. We sat down with a wonderful local brewery, the Black Abbey.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you're from Nashville, you probably know and have had many of the Black Abbey's beers.
If not, get yourself to Nashville and try some. They're called the Black Abbey. They started out doing Belgian-style beers, but they have branched out into some other stuff.
Yep.
We sat down and mainly talked to Carl Meyer. He's kind of the behind this. He's like the face.
He's the founder.
He's a founder. Yeah. He used to brew. He's not their main brewer right now, so we talked to him for the majority of the time. But one of their brewers, John, did come into the interview about halfway through and kind of gave us some input here and there.
Yep.
Just a heads up, we were interviewing them in the middle of the tap room or off to the side in the tap room.
Yeah, there was like a separate room they called the library.
So you can definitely hear some people drinking beers and talking and...
just a little bit of background noise.
We're in a big old room, but we did our best to kind of isolate that and give you the best sounding audio that we could.
Yep.
I hope you enjoy, and if you are easily offended by curses, this is an unedited episode, so there are some little curses here and there, so you've been warned.
Yep.
if you are offended, don't listen, but
either way...
Actually, if you are offended, just listen anyways, because it's really interesting.
It's definitely worth listening to. Enjoy the episode.
Yes, and enjoy Black Abbey.
Yeah.
Cheers!
Here's a theme song, you know it's not a mean song. It's a good song, just as it should song. American Brews and Tunes. Shibbity beeby dow.
All right, we're here at the Black Abbey Brewing Company in Nashville, Tennessee, and we are joined today by Carl Meyer.
Hey.
And he is the founder of Black Abbey, or
Yep.
are you also a brewer?
Yeah, so Black Abbey was founded by 3 homebrewers, me and Mike and John.
Okay.
We met at a homebrew club here in Nashville called the Antioch Sudsuckers.
Oh, really?
Good name.
ASS for short. We got pretty competitive with another homebrew club in town called the Music City Brewers, and we're very friendly with those guys, but we're sending beers to competitions all around, just mostly trying to whoop them.
Right.
And won a lot of medals and ribbons, and then in 2009, we won a silver medal in the National Homebrew Competition for a Belgian Abbey-style ale, and decided that at that point we ought to think about writing a business plan. And so we incorporated in 2011, moved into this space in 2013, started brewing in August, beer out the door in September of 13.
That's awesome.
But to answer your question, I typically don't brew. There are 2 of us that are active in the business day to day. John is our head brewer, and one runs the back of the house, and then I handle anything that's customer facing.
Okay. But you don't brew regularly, but since you were part of the home brewing club, you've got a pretty healthy knowledge of brewing.
I would say that I brew on the pilot system with some regularity. So oftentimes, if there's small batch stuff that's on in the tap room, there's probably a 1 in 10 chance it's some cockamamie idea I came up with. Like we do an event in February we call it Girl Scout Cookie Day, where we pair Girl Scout cookies with beer. And so I'll bring my daughter in, who's now 9. We've done this, I guess, for the last 3 years. And she was a scout, and so she'll come in and we'll brew together on the pilot system, and then we'll pair whatever beer she makes with some kind of cookie. So I don't want to imply that I'm on the pilot system all the time, but I do still brew on the pilot system some.
Okay.
And so you won that competition with the Belgian style.
Correct.
Was it the first Belgian style brew that you've done?
No, when when we were getting ready to start planning the brewery, we thought, we should, we're looking for underserved population, right? So we thought, well, we should go to Murfreesboro and brew yellow beer and put it in cans. Because there's a college down there, and at the time there weren't any breweries. This is pre-Mayday, so there weren't any breweries down there. And then, so when typically I would run a lot of the pilot beer, and so I'd brew at home at night, and so I'd help put the kids to bed, and then I'd brew. But I can't just brew one thing. I would brew 2 or 3 things at once, just trying to maximize my time spent. And we'd find out, all right, I'm going to brew this, sort of macro clone American lager.
Yeah.
Perfect for college.
Yes. But then on the other things, I'm going to brew stuff that I want to drink.
Yeah.
And at some point, we kind of stepped back from that and said, why would we do that? Like, we're making these other beers that are so good and that we really like. We should try to be more, we should try to be authentic.
Yeah.
And it really sort of changed the direction of where we were going as far as the company is concerned.
Yeah.
To try to make something that was authentic and interesting to us. Because I think it's a lot easier to get people to buy into that.
Yeah.
You say, well, this is something that I brew and this is something that I like, rather than I created this thing to try to make money. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
I think that'll
definitely
come
makes
through and
sense.
show in the product and the business itself.
Right.
It's going to
Yeah.
show.
And that's where the created, not made idea came from, in a way.
Yes, that's always been our approach to making beer. Is we want to make beers that are unique but still approachable.
Yeah.
And I like trying weird stuff as much as anybody else, but at the end of the day, we want to make beers that, while still are unique, but are where you can still sit down and drink 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
But then, and also, we very much view the brewing process as creating something rather than just viewing this as a manufacturing facility where we're making, we're not just stamping out.
You're not just pumping out product for the sake of pumping it out.
Right.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, I went and toured the Anheuser-Busch brewery in St. Louis.
Really?
Went up there with the family on fall break or something, and I had never been. And they bring you into this lagering room where they have the big horizontal lagering tanks.
Yeah.
And one of those horizontal lagering tanks held more beer than we made in a year.
Really?
And there were like 90 of them in this one building.
Man,
And
That's
there's
insane.
50 of these buildings or some absurd
Across
number
the
on the
country
property.
or something.
Well, just
Oh,
on
just
that
on the
property.
property. Oh,
that
wow.
property, yeah.
And they're turning them every X number of weeks, like
That's
3 or 4
that's
weeks.
really crazy.
Think about their manufacturing and their distribution zone. It's huge.
Oh, it's
It's huge.
They have to
international.
keep up with it.
Yeah.
But
So
you don't get the attention to the product as much. You don't.
Yeah, and I say that not to be derogatory towards Anheuser-Busch, because in the history of, I might even say more than just alcoholic beverage, but maybe in food product, like no one has achieved what they have achieved.
Yeah.
Where they've got
That's a very
breweries
good
all over the
point.
world, and every one of those breweries, the product that comes out of there tastes exactly the same.
Yes, yeah.
The pH is the same. Like everything is the same. Like it's a remarkable accomplishment.
Yeah.
But at that point, you are very much a manufacturer, right? You're
Right.
Levi, right? Your
Yep.
jeans have to look the same, fit the same,
Yeah.
stitch the same. Just
Not much in the way of variation at all.
right.
So getting back to created, not made, you have given us some beers to try.
Yes.
So what do we have in front of us to try first?
So the first beer I brought out is our flagship. It's a Belgian-style blonde ale. It's called the Rose. The Rose is one of the beers that we opened the brewery with.
Okay.
And it's been our leader ever since.
Is that the one you won the competition with?
It's not. The one we won the competition with, so it was a Belgian Dark Strong,
Okay, so
which when we opened in 2013, unless we had a distiller's license, we can only brew in the
Right.
state of
That
Tennessee
was
up to
pre
6.2.
these new laws that
Yeah.
have come out in the past 2 years, or what year?
It changed in January of 17.
changed.
Okay, yeah.
So
for
the-
gravity reasons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the beer that is the one that was based on the medal that we won is the Special, which is our Belgian double.
Okay.
But Rose. So when we opened with Rose, Champion, which is our pale ale, Jude, which was an English bitter, And then we had a brown ale that had a terrible name. Its name was Cab, but it was spelled Kiab.
Okay.
And there is absolutely no way it will get me to divulge what that stood for.
Okay.
I don't even remember why we brewed it. It was just one of those things where, like, I look back at it now and I was like, why did we do that?
Just a memory that you just kind of want.
Like, the beer was good,
past you.
and again, it's just one of those authenticity things where, you know, we were sitting around drinking one night and thought this name was hilarious, and then we're like, whatever, just name it that.
do it.
It's fine, just name it that. And you know, then you start putting it on menus, and people come in and they're like, "Can I have the KIAB or whatever?" And like, why did we do
If I
this?
saw that on a board, I wouldn't know how to pronounce it. I'd have to fumble my way through it, I think.
Well, the second beer that I'll bring you, we are still struggling with that a little bit because the second beer that we'll try is called Tennessee IPA,
Okay.
but the can says TN IPA,
TN, yeah.
And so people all the time say Tanippa,
yeah.
but you're just like, dude, it's TN IPA. Like, so if you say every word, every letter, it's TN IPA. Like, oh, right, of course, TN IPA or Tennessee IPA.
So the rose, what notes?
so-
What notes can we expect? And
Yeah, so,
what the grain bill was.
We work with Chimay's yeast.
Okay.
And so we get a lot of banana and a lot of clove out of that yeast.
And it comes off the nose pretty
Big,
well.
bright. But people all the time think it's a wheat beer or a Hefeweizen.
Okay,
but that Chimay yeast throws off a lot of banana. Mid palate, it'll be sweet, and then it'll finish nice and dry. So the Chimay yeast really fully attenuates, and so we'll get a really good, solid dryness, which makes it a very good beer to pair with food.
Okay.
I think a lot of times your sweet beers tend to overpower whatever it is you're eating. And so the Chimay yeast, I think, leaves a nice mid-palate breadiness and sweetness, but then finishes dry, so you get a little bit of best of both worlds.
Nice.
But it's 5.6 by volume. It's real low IBUs. I think it's 13, 14 IBUs.
Okay.
Really low, but
Sounds like a drinkable beer.
very drinkable.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Just general ideas to make, again, beer that's repeatable.
Yeah. Right.
Because I think, I don't know, this is something that I don't want to say it frustrates me, but that I'm flummoxed by in the current beer industry is, like, how do you get people to pull the handle a second time?
Right.
With more varieties, more breweries.
It seems like that's what a lot of breweries do. They're like, oh, our new mango IPA, our new.
Like, anybody can get somebody to pull the handle once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of breweries that are sort of built on that model that, you know, we're only as good as our next batch.
Yeah.
And if you can make anything and sell it once. I think the real challenge and what will ultimately be the sustainability factor for breweries is, can you make something that people latch onto and will order again and again? We'll buy it at the grocery store, we'll buy it at the liquor store, we'll buy it on draft. I think, nobody just buys Crest toothpaste, right? You won't find people who are like, you know what, man, I only use Crest.
Yeah.
Fuck Colgate. I'm not going to use that crap. No one has that kind of brand loyalty, I think, and specifically not in beer. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
However, I will say that beer drinkers are the same, whether they're like macro guys or whether they're craft guys.
Yeah.
Everybody sort of, their
They'll stick in
behaviors are the
a-
same.
in a camp, but then they'll
Like
They'll
the
diverge from that
whatever.
camp
It's like
for a little bit. Yeah.
I got a buddy of mine who, we're distributed across the state through Anheuser-Busch distributors. So I
Yeah.
have a lot of friends throughout the distribution network who are AB guys, and so they drink Ultra or they drink Bud Light. That's part of their organizational culture. And even those guys, if they say, you know what, I only drink Bud Light, but you know what, I'm out at dinner tonight and I'm wearing a sport jacket, I might get an Amber Bock, right? Like they will venture out, and they might buy one or two, but then they're going to swing back to what they normally do.
Yeah.
The craft guys are the same. Like, I might go to a bar and order a peach mango habanero sour with vanilla and
Whatever else in it,
just exactly, asteroid
something
dust,
for an occasion.
right?
just to
Just to try it.
Yeah.
But then
Then you always come back to something like the rose.
yes,
Like
and
just
that's
sitting down having a beer for the night,
Yeah.
doing something.
exactly, like, I very much want to
go-to
craft beers
usually.
that you can drink more than one of.
Yeah.
And I think that Rose very much fits that bill, and even that was our flagship from the jump, and there's still really sort of nothing like it in the Nashville market.
Yeah.
which honestly I think is a big part of the reason why the Nashville brewery scene is so tight, is that we don't overlap a lot with what one another do.
Agreed.
Uh,
And even with a bunch more popping up, I feel like it's not a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
For
even
the most
with
part, at least.
the new market entrants, like,
Yeah.
you would think, oh, well, we've got, say, Bearded Iris and Southern Grist that have both opened and are both, like, very popular.
Yeah.
But, BI really does the hazy stuff, and Southern Grist has really been doing more of the pastry stouts and...
Yeah, a lot of that kind of stuff.
I saw something they had the other day that was, like, almonds and limoncello, and it tasted like
Really?
cake. I mean, it's
Interesting.
crazy.
There's a little overlap, but no one's stepping on anyone's toes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Everyone's. You have to differentiate yourself and kind of make what sets you apart. And I feel like the Rose, from my experiences, is probably what set you guys apart, having the Belgian
Right.
style. When I think Nashville Belgian, my first thought would be the Black Abbey.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to make a Vienna lager and call it, Tres Gatos. But, like, I'm friends with the guys at
Instead of
Yazoo. Like, I'm not
Dos
gonna,
Perros,
yeah.
I'm not gonna pee in his lunchbox,
Yeah.
and that's,
Yeah.
I enjoy being friends with those guys, and I think as long as, I don't want to say as long as we stay in our lanes, but I think we have the opportunity in Nashville. Nashville is a collaborative city. I mean, that's what songwriters do. They sit down together and write songs, and they don't view it as some kind of crazy competition. They view it as supporting one another and building a culture. And I think the breweries have very much approached our industry that way.
I feel like it's a good environment that a lot of cities probably don't have,
Agreed.
which would set Nashville. Nashville is just a strange city in general, because it is a major city, but it has a small town kind of feel.
Agreed.
So I
Yeah,
think
it definitely does.
that lends itself to that environment.
Yeah, I say that all the time. Nashville is it's a small town trapped in a big city's body.
It really
Yeah.
is. It really is. What say we give the Rose a try?
Yep. So on American Brews and Tunes, we like to give it cheers.
Okay.
And,
we create our own catchphrase.
Yeah.
and it's
And
very goofy.
It's shibbity beep dow.
So
So if you would like to try to remember that, and cheers with
Do I have
us.
to like scat it like Kevin Cronin?
I mean, you can do
can
that
say it
if
however
you
you
so
like.
desire, but for some reason we came up with it, and we every time we cheers for the first time, we go and say it.
Okay.
So
Shibbity-beep-dow.
Oh, that was going. Shibbity-boop-bow.
Yeah.
I like that. Add the music to it.
The guy who does sales for us here in Nashville he and I have we have a show, an internet radio show on Acme Radio, which is based down in Acme Feed and Seed downtown.
Okay, yeah.
And it's called Dad Rock Block. And so here recently we did a program where I played nothing but songs by REO Speedwagon. And I did it a little bit to annoy Isaiah because he has a much more sort of punk rock pedigree than I do.
And Isaiah is the one you do the radio show with?
Yes, yeah. But what really drove him nuts was when I played a song called 157 Riverside Avenue, where in the middle of the song there's just 5 minutes of just vamping.
Oh my God.
Kevin Cronin telling this ridiculous story where he keeps saying the same words over and over again, and finally Isaiah was like, "What is this?" And then then he does this sort of back and forth with the guitarist where he sings and then the guitar plays it, and then the guitar plays something and he scats it back, and he's like, I can't believe you're making me listen to this.
I feel like that's how I would, because I'm a little bit more of a punk rock kind of guy, and I like
Yep.
the fast to the point. But I feel like you would probably appreciate
Probably
that more.
appreciate that more, yeah.
The old school REO Speedwagon, like the late 60s, early 70s REO Speedwagon, was very like classic rock, Allman Brothers, kind of almost jam bandy, which I really like. Once they got into that, Wheels Are Turning, I Can't Fight This Feeling Anymore.
Real
Like,
real popular.
That's where it kinda got
mainstream
gross.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anything leading up to High Infidelity, which was Heard It From a Friend Who, Heard It From a Friend Who.
Yep.
Uh,
Or just classic
really
REO
enjoyed.
Speedwagon.
yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know how this got off a beer on REO Speedwagon.
It's all right.
all right.
But having tried this though and smelling it too, you can definitely taste that Belgian kind of spice with a slight little bit of banana. I see what you're talking about when you
Yeah,
said that.
and that's all 100% yeast driven. Like, we don't add fruit
Yeah,
to
that's
it.
pretty interesting.
There's no
Yeah.
candy sugar. It's all just. I mean, that's a Reinholzgebot beer.
Yeah.
And I think that's always what has interested me about the sort of Belgian yeast strains,
Yeah.
is that they provide this additional flavor component that
It's
doesn't
so off
come
the
from anything
wall
else.
from other yeast
it's
strains.
very, very
so
odd.
Theoretically, if you were to take the exact same grain bill for the rose and use a different strain of yeast, just something a little bit more standard to a lager beer or any whatever more normal yeast strain would be, how different would it taste?
Probably quite a bit.
It depends. We've done it on a number of occasions. Where, like, especially in the pilot system, where the guys will pull, they'll pull 10 gallons off during knockout and put it into a carboy and drop something else in it, another yeast strain to sort of change it up. One of those, oh gosh, I'm never going to be able to remember the name of it, but they'll brew it on English yeast, and I get a surprising amount of banana out of the English yeast, which is not really stylistically appropriate. You wouldn't expect that at all.
I wouldn't guess that.
And there's really hardly any wheat in rose at all. It's mostly Pilsner malt. There is a little bit of wheat, but not much. And so you might think with the Maillard reaction, you might pick up a little bit of banana anyway. But it was strange to pick it up out of the English yeast. But we've also run it on lager yeast, and I may be able to produce a sample of that if you would like to try what rose tastes like on lager yeast.
I would be very curious.
Yeah,
I've had plenty of Belgian style beers, and I love that flavor that you get from the yeast. But it's almost hard to believe that all that flavor comes from the yeast itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to push pause for a second and I'll round it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got some tasters of the rose made with what yeast strain?
Munich lager.
Munich
Lager
lager.
yeast strain.
So it's exactly the same. Everything's the same. Styrian Golding hops, same malt bill, everything.
Yeah.
We just fermented it on Munich lager yeast.
The nose is
the nose is
automatically
already
different.
much different.
Yeah, it's
I mean, it still has a bit of a sweet aroma to it.
Yep.
But I'm not getting any of that banana clover or
Right.
It's a
anything
little
you expect from
bit
that.
lighter. It smells lighter.
Yeah.
Than,
if I had to drop it into a style box, I'd probably say it was a Helles.
okay.
Because it's too dark to be a Pilsner, and too strong. Honestly, it's 5.6. It finished. That was one thing that was also interesting, is that it attenuated just the same. So same ABV as rose. Obviously the IBUs are the same, but it drops that banana and clove out of it. It's still like bready and malty, like biscuit malty.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I don't think it finishes in the flavor component quite as dry as rose. I think I get a little more sweetness out of the
Interesting.
lager yeast.
Well,
Give it
shall
a
we
try
give it a shot?
and see what we think.
Yeah.
When we run it on English yeast, our brewer was standing at the bar, and so I asked him, he calls it Fool's Golding. So if you're ever kicking around and see it on tap in the tap room, Fool's Golding is just rose on
exactly
English
that.
yeast.
I see it's a lot.
I like that. There's
It
definitely
almost-
is still a really heavy breadiness to it,
It does.
which is nice.
But
Yeah.
it almost feels like I don't know if it's my mind playing tricks on me, but it almost feels like it has a lighter body than the rose with the Chimay yeast.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
maybe
mean-
that's just since the flavor profile's changed up. That's how
I don't think it's a lighter body, or I think it's just a different feel,
different profile,
different mouthfeel. Yeah.
But I mean, it's still sweet. It's still smooth.
And we
nice.
we carb rose to 2.9 volumes, so it's a little more sparkly.
Okay.
Technical terms. You know what I mean? Like it's just a little more zippy, so it's got a little bit
A
more.
little bit, it feels like it's more carbonated.
Yeah, and like CO2 gives you a little bit of carbonic acid, so you maybe get a little bit more sparkly is always the word that I use on that. But you get like a little
Just
more
get a little
sparkly
more sparkliness.
than you do out of the lager side.
But I like this. It's also a really good, easy drinking
Yeah.
beer.
Yeah, that's we had it on tap. But I did an event at Brewhouse South on Friday, and I may or may not have drank 7 of them.
I think that'd be very easy to drink 7 of these.
It was frightening, actually. We were-
It goes down very easy.
all of a sudden, I was like, "We need more wings, like right now." I did not lay down
I know that
an
feeling.
appropriate base.
But that's really nice. I would like this
that.
with wings. Would be perfect with this.
It was great, actually.
Wings. This
Yeah.
would go with anything at a German restaurant. Bratwurst, pretzels.
Oh yeah.
Not to lay down like shameless plugs for Brewhouse South, but if you order the Mojo wings extra crispy, that's money.
Good.
That sounds like it'd be really good with that.
just a little spicy. There's
Yeah.
money.
But I've always been curious how much effect that the Belgian yeast has on the flavor, and having tried these two, I mean that
It's
shows
quite
just
a
how
bit.
much the yeast
Yeah.
puts into the beer.
It really makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And Rose is about 50% of our total production volume, and we run 2 year-round Belgian-style beers. We run the Rose and we run Special, the Belgian Double. And like the Double or the Special is a 7.5% beer, so it's the strongest year-round beer that we make.
Okay.
And it's also, it's a Belgian double, so it looks dark, but it drinks light. But sometimes I think when people see it, when it comes across the bar, they get scared.
Yeah.
Because it's dark in color. And I think that it has placements where it is there all the time and never goes away, but it doesn't have near the production pull that Rose does.
Yeah. So, getting back to your name, the Black Abbey Brewing Company.
Yes.
We read online that it was from Luther.
Correct.
Or had something to do with Luther.
Yes.
So it was a combination of was it the Black Cloister?
Yeah. So when Luther wrote his 95 Theses, he was a monk, belonged to a monastery called the Black Cloister. Years later, after he had been excommunicated, he and his wife Catherine were given a piece of property as a wedding gift that had the Black Cloister on it. So the monks left. Luther and Martin and Catherine moved in. She brewed beer there. She exercised the brewery rights on that property, and then effectively financed the Protestant Reformation out of the monastery where Luther started.
Oh, that's fairly interesting. Yeah.
In the Middle Ages, and this is all right. If I had an aluminum foil hat, this is where I would put it on. Okay.
Okay.
So, in the Middle Ages, the brewers weren't making what we would think of as beer. The process was the same, but they didn't have hops. They were using something called gruit, or grut, which is what they would use to bitter or spice the beer. Well, the recipe for grut was owned by the Roman Church. So there is absolutely no way in hell that Catherine von Bora was buying gruit from the Roman Church, who had excommunicated and tried to murder her husband.
Yeah.
So she was absolutely making beer with hops.
For lack of a better term, it would be blasphemy for her to use gruit.
Yes, right. So she absolutely would have been using hops, and I think the interesting thing about they don't really know what was in the spice blend for gruit.
Okay.
Like there's some written reference, but it's not really very clear. But some of the things that they reference for sure are similar ingredients to what they used to make absinthe, which
really?
are
Interesting.
psychotropic.
Yeah.
And so I believe there's at least a small case to be made that the Roman Church in the Middle Ages was engaged in some sort of mind control. And because you couldn't drink the water because it wasn't safe.
Yeah.
And so everybody
you
drank
drank that.
beer, but the only way you could drink the beer was to have it made with this stuff that the church was selling you that was full of mugwort and other psychotropic things. So it's a little weird.
That's interesting.
That,
yeah.
Very interesting.
Then Luther breaks from he breaks
so it
from the
gets
church,
even- yeah,
and
it's
Catherine
more
says, "Well, the
interesting.
thing that's making you sick is the wine you drink." Well, maybe it wasn't the wine he was drinking. Maybe it was actually the gruit. And for her to not be able to buy that and then to move on to use hops, Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the castle church door in 1517. 1516 is Reinholdsgebot that says beer can only be water, yeast, hops,
German
and
period law,
malt,
correct?
right? So they didn't know what yeast was. So in 1516, it was just water, hops, and malt. And everybody thinks that law had something to do with the rise of wheat beers. I say bullshit. What that law had to do with was hops, because the brewers were saying, "Stop taxing me, Roman Church. We're not going to buy this mind control crap from you. We're going to use this wicked weed, right? We're going to use hops." I've had so much coffee today. We're not even in the 30 minutes down, and we're already into like Roman Catholic mind control.
It gets pretty deep.
But it's fascinating,
Hey,
right?
that is very
all of that
interesting.
stuff is happening at the same time, and so we think, as my pastor is prone to say, you can neither prove nor disprove this statement, but we think that the kind of beer that Catherine would have been making in the Middle Ages would have been much more similar to a Belgian-style beer than what we think of as German beer, because they didn't know what yeast was, so they couldn't have propagated or cultured lager yeast. They didn't have any sort of temperature control. They didn't have the technology to make pale malt, so the malt would have been brown. The beer probably would have been a little smoky, maybe a little tart. We think something very similar to some sort of Abbey-style ale or saison. And that's probably much more accurate to what she would have been
saison,
brewing at that time. So we take Abbey Ale and Black Cloister and fit that together, and that's where our name comes from.
I like that. That's pretty cool. I had no idea that it was going to go towards the tinfoil hat aspect of it, but I like that though.
I'm definitely a conspiracy theorist.
The church had their hands in a lot of things, so
they did.
It's probably not that far fetched.
Right. You didn't think it was going to be a Dan Brown book, right? It's like
right.
So the original Gruit recipe is stored in the Mona Lisa.
It might be. I mean, if you try and get close to the Mona Lisa, they might take you down.
That's right. You're going to get tased.
Yeah.
Mona Lisa is boring. Have you ever been to Notre Dame?
I've seen pictures of the room where they have it.
It's like
it's a Louvre, right?
They have it on a wall that's in like the middle of the room, and then the Mona Lisa is on it. It's very small, and there's just a bunch of people looking at it with their phones, and it's just like, all right, well, I'm done looking at this.
Right.
I thought it'd be cool to see, but
it was cool to see.
It sounds very underwhelming.
It was very underwhelming.
Kind of like the Liberty Bell.
Oh, right, because that's also very small.
I don't know if you've seen the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, but
when you go and you are then surprised that it's broken.
Well, it's not the fact that it's broken. I mean, I expected that, but it was just small. It was just, I imagined this great big bell that was a shining beacon of.
Have you ever been to Plymouth Rock?
I've heard of what Plymouth Rock is actually like, and
it's also very
case.
underwhelming.
Yeah,
because it's like, they've built this structure around it, and you look down in there, and there's this rock,
little rock.
But it's also all covered in garbage.
So
it's just litter. It's like, really, this is what it's come to, like McDonald's cheeseburger wrappers all over Plymouth Rock.
You imagine a big prestigious rock that's all clear of human filth,
right? With the footprints of the first pilgrims, chiseled.
No, not at all.
They were like, please God, let me off this boat. I can't take another moment in this cesspool of a floating toilet.
Yeah, seriously.
Coming back to names, though, how did you settle on the Rose? Is there any significance behind that?
Yeah, so when Luther would seal correspondence, he had his seal, or his crest that he would use.
In the traditional wax seals?
But it was very deliberate in how it was designed, so that it wasn't just wax, but it was often illustrated in. Luther translated the Bible from Latin into German, and much as monks would do in the Middle Ages. It was very, everything was all filigree and gold and illustrated, but his crest was very much that way, and that it was a gold ring around a blue background with a white rose and a red heart and a black cross in the middle. And each one of those things had a very specific significance. And very early on in our naming process, we gave consideration to naming all of our flagship beers after a component of that crest.
Oh, okay.
So it would be gold ring, blue field, white rose, black cross, red heart.
Yeah.
Then we realized we were a purple horseshoe away from Lucky Charms. And we're like, this is ridiculous. We can't name beers like this. But the rose, or the white rose, stuck.
Was it originally the White Rose?
Yeah, we toyed with White Rose. My business partner, John, just walked in the room. We toyed with the White Rose in the beginning.
For a little bit.
Yeah.
And then moved away from that.
But, yeah, it was just too complicated. And it just was, it's like...
Rose is just much simpler and easier.
Broke it down to the Rose. Fair enough, simple.
But yeah, so many, not all, but many of our beers are sort of named in that way to have some sort of either historical or theological tie back.
Yeah, which was another question I was curious about, because it did seem like there was like the Guy Fawkes. I mean, that's obvious, or the Krampusnacht. They all seem to harken back to. Well, those two are for figures.
Right.
One real, one not so much.
Most
per
of
se.
them.
You never know.
You never know. But they are definitely European.
Yes.
Is that usually where you look for influence?
Well, when we first started, what we looked at in the what was going on in the brewery world at the time was that there were a lot of breweries that had sort of a 1950s feel in their branding, but also there wasn't a lot of beer that was European influenced. It was a lot of English influence maybe, but there were a lot of IPAs and a lot of pale ales, and we like those styles, and I think do a really good job at making those styles. But there wasn't a lot of European influence either in the liquid or in the branding, and so we're history buffs and thought that was really interesting, and the Luther story sort of tied it all together, and that made it very much reflective of who we are, I think, as people. Again, talking about a brand that's authentic. I think it's a lot easier to create and sell something that is very personal.
Completely agree with that.
And so many of the beer names do have that sort of European influence, but not all of them. Tennessee IPA is a good example. That would be the next beer that we drink. That beer. In today's beer landscape, you've got your West Coast IPAs that are real resiny and piney, and often pretty aggressively bitter, and then you've got the New England style from the East Coast where it's hazy and juicy, but not super bitter on the back end.
They cut the bitterness down out of those.
And so with the Tennessee IPA, we like to joke that it's the IPA for the flyover states,
Yeah.
where to combine a little bit of both of those things and do an unfiltered IPA that has that like peach, pineapple, fruit juice nose. It's not super bitter on the back, but does carry a little bit of that Cascade pininess. So try to put those two things together. So while Tennessee IPA doesn't necessarily fit into the Martin Luther backstory, it is very descriptive of what that beer is.
And kind of where you guys are brewing as well.
Right, exactly.
And wanting to carve your own way.
And I think
do something a little bit different.
We very purposefully chose a name that wasn't geographically tied when we opened. We didn't say, we're going to be Sidco Drive Brewing Company. And that's had positive and negative effects, I think. There are still people who walk in this tap room. Here we are 6 years later.
So
who
where's
say,
the Black Abbey?
I had no idea you were in Nashville. And that, we, I think, created a name and a brand that can travel. But Tennessee IPA also gives us something that's sort of missing out of our brand package, which is something that very specifically says we are a Tennessee brand and we're proud of it.
I like that.
I like that too. And
should we drink it?
But before we actually get to drinking that, and while we're still on names, and geography, does the 5 Points beer have reference to the 5 Points in Nashville?
No.
5 Points in New York?
Nope. 5 Points of Calvinism.
Okay, so I was extremely wrong in that one.
Yeah, so we named that after John Calvin, again a Middle Ages theologian. The mnemonic for remembering what the 5 Points of Calvinism is tulip. So
tulip, yes.
Total depravity, unlimited, right? So that's how you remember what they are. And so when very early, actually it was in our business plan that we were going to make an IPA and call it 5 Points. Named for that, and then we would put a tulip on the label. And so the way that you go through label approval, not to go off in the boring land, but you have to file for what they call a COLA, and you submit your label design to the Alcohol, Tobacco, Tax and Trade Bureau with the federal government, or the TTB. There are, I guess I would call them media organizations that sort of monitor. That's all public record when a new label is applied for and approved. And so they oftentimes will, screen grab that stuff and post it out on their Twitter. And so when the 5 Points was approved, somebody posted out, Black Abbey to launch new can 5 Points IPA, and within minutes, somebody was like, "Oh, look, a Calvinist brewery."
Oh my goodness!
And I was so mad because I'm like, all these East Nashville people are going to be walking around drinking this Calvinist beer, and they're not going to know. They're going to think it's named after the 5 Points.
That's what I always thought.
Yeah. And no.
Somebody figured it out very
Interesting,
quickly.
yeah.
Well, you forget that Nashville's #1 industry is publishing, and most of that is Christian publishing. And
Yeah, because of
while there's
Lifeway
a
and whatnot.
lot of Southern Baptists here, but they're all very well educated in
Yeah.
theologic history,
Yeah.
and they all knew exactly what that was.
that is too
Yeah,
funny.
that's so funny.
All right, so getting into the TN IPA, not to be confused with the Tanipa.
Tanipa, yeah.
Would you like to say what we should be looking for in the taste?
I'm just interested to see what John's face is when he sees your
Oh,
toast.
Oh, yeah.
should we just tell him or just go with it?
I think
Let's
it's
just
time
go
to
for it.
All right.
I like to be surprised.
Shibbity-bee-boo-dow!
Bada bing, bada boom.
Perfect.
But for me, it's not an aggressively sweet beer. It gets bright and peachy and pineapple-y in the nose and in the palate, and then it's a little sparkly,
Yeah.
and then finishes real clean and like with a fruit character left behind rather than hop bitterness.
Yeah, I agree with you on the sweet aspect, and especially after having had the rose before.
Yeah.
This compared to that is not sweet at all. But I mean, you do get that the peachiness and a little bit of that
Yeah.
fruitiness.
It almost tastes like peach skin.
Right.
Is what it's
Yeah.
kind of how I would describe it.
You get a little bit maybe bitterness from the skin too.
Yeah.
and
It's
it's
not-
not
that's
overly hoppy.
No.
So that's
well,
how you're explaining it's not like the West
not-
Coast.
it's not a
It's
West
not-
Coast
it's not-
It's not
yeah.
aggressive.
Right. And that's it's
pungent.
cashmere and Huel melon are the primary hop drivers on that, and both of those give that real fruit juice
Yeah.
nose and flavor to it.
And I do have a lingering slight bitterness. Not what you expect from like a big IPA, but
Yeah.
just ever so slightly. I've got that little bitterness lingering on my tongue. And
Yep.
it's nice.
It's nice.
It's a good bitterness.
Is there a little Cascade in that?
Oh yeah, there's Cascade, there's Citra, Cascade. I believe that there has to be a little bit of bitterness in the back end. I tried to balance that with a lot of the forward late hop additions. It's a little bit like a mimosa, that peach fuzz.
Yeah.
To
Yes,
me,
that's
it
a
reminds
good
me of like a
comparison.
mimosa, but it's not quite as juicy.
Yeah.
If you had a really dry champagne and went easy on the orange juice, that's what you get.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good comparison.
Personally, I'm really all about the champagne side of it because I'm looking for the buzz. I don't really care about the orange juice as much. That's what
I think a lot of people are on the same page with you there.
Yeah.
though. It's-
Yeah.
That's
You
the
can-
sign of a
I'll
good.
take the mimosa, skip the orange juice.
Yeah.
Right. There's a.
man.
If y'all ever eaten at Von Elrod's down in Germantown,
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
they'll serve you a mimosa on Sundays in a liter stein.
Oh my goodness.
It's a whole bottle of champagne, and then they just top it off with orange juice.
That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
I know where I'm going Sunday.
I was just about to say I'm gonna have to make some new brunch plans.
Jeez.
That is too
That's
funny.
too funny,
I love
man.
that place, but I've never
Love it.
thought to get a
It's
mimosa
crazy.
from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
That is hilarious.
So all the woo girls are down there drinking them out of
Oh,
with straws.
oh yeah, I know. All the bridal parties.
So I was telling y'all before this started, I was on a terrestrial radio show yesterday, and they asked about the location of our brewery, and we're not based downtown. We're 5 miles from downtown, but we're nonetheless
Yeah.
not downtown.
just south of downtown.
And we were talking about specifically Jackalopes Tap Room and how they're
Yeah.
right in the Gulch, and so they've got a pretty steady, they've got a pretty busy little tap room down there.
Yeah.
But one of the things that they have to deal with that we don't is the onslaught of bachelorettes.
Oh gosh, I know.
They actually have a posted sign in their brewery that says "No penis straws allowed,"
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
and like
That's ridiculous.
That's where our city has come.
Wow, yeah.
I'm not surprised though, in all honesty.
Yeah.
But I'm very grateful to have a space where we don't have to. Have
You
a
don't
sign
have to have
says
that
no
sign.
penis
Yeah.
straws. Like,
I think that's for the better.
Yeah, for
I agree.
sure.
It makes for a more neighborhood feel. and-
Less party bar, more cheers feel.
yeah.
More cheers
And
feel, yeah.
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 I mean, there's
That's
certainly
good.
something to be said for party bars. Lord knows,
I mean, there's a time and place for everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I like party bars, but when I'm just going to hang out and have a nice night, that's not where I.
Definitely not where I want to go.
I think that sets a nice atmosphere for this. Coming back to the TN IPA, I think it also fits what you were saying when you were talking about the Rose, about it being a nice beer that you could come back to.
Right.
I agree.
And was that also in your mind when you were...
We try very
this?
hard to make beers that you could sit down and drink multiple of.
Yeah.
You know, the way to make money, I think, or to survive in this business is to have beer where the faucet gets pulled more than once.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's just it. I think that one of the beers that I've been very excited and pleased to be a part of is we have an ongoing partnership with Jameson Irish Whiskey.
Okay, yeah.
We're part of one of 20 some odd breweries in the country that are part of their Drinking Buddies program.
Were they
So
the
they-
cask mates and the flip side of that?
Yes, so they send us barrels, we age beer in the barrels, and then we have parties. And last year we did a 9% Doppelbock called Substantiator, and it was a delight to drink. It was just a wonderful beer, but there, if you had two, you were in bad trouble.
done.
Yeah.
Right? You were in bad trouble. And so I think that well, let's
It could be good trouble.
As long as you don't drive.
Tolerances.
let's talk about Bell's Nickel.
That was bad trouble.
So we did a beer one time. We got some barrels from Woodford.
Oh, really?
And
Okay,
it was
cool.
interesting because whatever, we'll get into the liquor politics a little bit. Diageo bought George Dickel, and then they came to the Tennessee legislature to try to get the specification of Tennessee whiskey widened. And so
Okay, yeah.
Tennessee whiskey has to be a very specific thing.
Yeah.
Has to be, charcoal filtered or whatever. And they wanted to widen it, not because they wanted to expand the reach of Dickel, but because they wanted to cripple Jack Daniel. And so many of the Brown-Forman people came in to lobby the state legislature that this was a bad idea. It was in their, obviously, Jack Daniel best interest to protect their brand.
Yeah.
And somehow one of those guys ended up here on a afternoon with somebody that I knew, and we were touring him around the back of the building, and he was like, oh, well, Woodford is part of the Brown-Forman family. And he was like, well, I could probably get you some barrels. Like, here's my card. We'd love to get you some barrels. And he gave me his card, and I emailed him. And how many barrels do you want? I said, I don't know, this many. And then they showed up, and so we're like, shit, what are we gonna do? And so we brewed a beer and put it in the barrels, and it picked up something. It had some kind of wild yeast involved in it.
Yeah.
And so when we put it in a bright tank and we tasted it, we're like, well, this isn't really what we intended, but it's pretty good. And so we packaged it, and it was John's kryptonite. Because man, if he drank one Bell's Nickel, he went straight from like sober John to whiskey John.
And what was the
around
ABV on
whiskey,
the...
John. Now let's have a good time.
The intended ABV was like 5.5%.
Yeah.
What came out of those barrels? There's no way of telling.
Oh, no.
I don't know, but and honestly, I don't
I'd
think
have
it
to
could have
look
been
at it.
more than 6 and change.
There's something that happens with, for me personally, when beer gets, I don't know, Brettanomyces or soured, the way it affects me.
There's something about it.
Something about it.
Yeah.
And so it's like drinking tequila, right?
Yeah.
So it's like some people drink tequila and they go crazy. Tequila doesn't bother me. Bell's Nickel, he opened up a demon.
Yeah, there was one
It was
day.
a lot of fun.
The next morning he came in. He's like, "You can't let me drink that anymore. I can't drink that beer anymore." I said, "No, you probably shouldn't drink that beer anymore."
That's really funny. Was that one of the craziest beers you've ever tried to brew, or was there another one that sticks out? Either in home brewing or with Black Abbey?
Well, homebrewing, I know exactly what you're laughing at.
I can think of a couple of examples.
But the St. Lucie was insane.
St. Lucie was crazy.
Ben, one of our brewers, wanted to make a 100% wheat beer,
100% wheat.
which wheat turns
Smoked
into oatmeal. Yes,
Yeah.
it was smoked wheat. And so it was a smoked
So it was
wheat
closer
IPA.
like Oh,
It was
a route.
because I was like, this is a bad idea. We shouldn't do this. He goes, oh, but I've run like 3 of them on the test batch system. It came out great. I'm like, this isn't going to work, man. No, it'll be great. I'm like, all right, well, you can do it, but you're in charge of it.
And it was a mess.
We were supposed to do, a double batch of it. And he got the first batch in, and it turned into a giant cement ball in the middle of the mash.
Oh my gosh!
And
No way.
it took him like 6 hours just to water the thing to get all the liquid out. And he was like, "Yeah, I think we'll just do 20."
Got cut it short pretty quick.
Man. Yeah, I told you so. I hate to be this guy that says I told you so.
Yeah.
I told you so.
Too funny.
It was a crazy beer.
It was a
wasn't
crazy
bad.
beer.
It was good. It came out as a decent beer.
But, I brewed a wit beer with Jolly Ranchers one time.
Jolly Ranchers.
You threw a bunch of Jolly Ranchers in the.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Green apple.
green apple Jolly Ranchers.
It was a green beer.
Yeah.
It was green.
That's when it's nice to have little kids because you're like, all right, I need you to open 700 Jolly Rancher candies and only eat like 3.
Yeah.
You know, and
Did the flavor come through?
oh yeah,
Oh wow.
I'd imagine they
Was it
probably
like
just
that?
dissolved in the.
oh yeah, they just drop them in the boil.
Was it like that kind of like manufactured weird green
Yeah,
apple
a
taste?
little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, it was. That was why it was so nice to have a wit beer because then you put
Yeah.
a little coriander in there and that wit beer. used
Okay,
to
yeah,
such a
kind of play
specific
off of it a little
flavor
bit.
signature.
When did you brew it? Was it like.
Oh, this was homebrew days.
Homebrew days.
'Cause that sounds like that'd be a good St. Patrick's beer.
Yeah,
that would
We've toyed with the idea. I don't know how I would get that many green apples.
That would be difficult.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I should reach out to Jolly Rancher and be like,
That's-
can you just send me just
Just
send
the
me
green.
just green.
Yes.
Yeah.
or syrup. The syrup.
The syrup.
That would
Why don't
help.
you Just dump the syrup in and see what
That would
Yeah.
give a new definition to green beer. I mean, it wouldn't be
It'd be great for St.
it wouldn't be a light lager with dye in it, food
Yeah.
Right.
coloring. You'd actually have some flavor.
Those are-
that is sour.
I bet you
Sweet and
it'd be
sour.
interesting. Yeah,
we
a really solid.
those are
offering.
fun phone calls when people call in and they're like, "Hey, you guys got any green beer for St. Patrick's Day?"
Yeah.
Come on, man.
If you bring your food coloring, then yes,
Yeah. Like you got a green.
we'll provide the
Bring your
beer.
own
You
food coloring.
You
Yeah.
provide the coloring.
Yeah.
So, what are some of your favorite beers? Doesn't have to be a Black Abbey beer, but just in general, favorite beers.
There's a brewery in California called the Brewery, BRUER.
Yes, they were at Beer Fest, right? No, they weren't.
Not available here.
No,
Okay.
They make a beer called Saison de Lent that I just love. So
Right.
good. I really like the sort of French style Saisons.
The farmhouse
and that,
style.
It's kind of my wheelhouse. So Orval, so good.
Yeah.
But that Saison de Lent is just righteous. Righteous.
Yeah. Just got all those classic farmhouse
Yeah. Just,
notes to it.
Yeah. Horse blanket.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a great Saison.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they make it anymore. I mean, I don't know. It used to come in large format bottles, which are gone the way of the dodo. But yeah, it was really good beer.
I don't think I've had any from the brewery.
You should check it out. It's good.
I've seen their stuff on posts, but I've never had the chance.
They make great beer.
Check it out.
Yeah, really good beer.
I feel like we've covered the beer aspect quite a bit,
Yeah.
so we should touch upon music.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, you're a big fan of music.
Yes.
You're able to differentiate REO Speedwagon
Into its various
Into its
segments.
various
segments. I
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
you're pretty knowledgeable. How does music affect the role of Black Abbey,
Or does it?
or does it? Yeah.
I think every now and again, for instance, this happened within maybe 3 weeks ago. I suggested that we have an IPA and call it Operation Mindcrime after the Queensryche record of a similar
Yeah.
name. And John was like, I think you need to back away from the 80s hair metal beer name references.
Let's try to separate the brewery from our personal musical preferences.
It may be
Yeah.
too much.
So, and that's a bit of a stretch.
I mean,
I was like, what does that even mean? It was like Queensryche. I was like, oh.
I mean, I love that reference, but it's a little bit
It's
a little
deep.
niche. Yeah,
It's a deep cut.
It's a deep cut, yeah.
That's hilarious.
But over the lifespan of the brewery, I mean, it's more than I can count on one hand the beers that are named after songs. We did a triple called Grand Design that's named for a song by Rush called Grand Designs.
Yeah.
Our Oktoberfest is called Chronicles, which is Rush's greatest hits album.
Very good beer, also.
Thank you. Then
Name it.
no, but it's coincidentally the same. Air quotes, coincidentally the same. Then it's gone from my head. St. Brendan's Way, which was a wee heavy that we did back last fall, was named for a song by one of my favorite bands, The Lowest of the Low. For those of you listening in Toronto, Canada, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about.
I do not know who you're talking about.
The Lowest of the Low was a band there's still a band based in Toronto, Canada.
Okay.
They released a record in the early 90s called Shakespeare My Butt. And have basically toured on it ever since.
Really?
Fair enough.
Interesting.
I mean, they can do that well off of one album. Why not?
Exactly. And I love them. So we did a beer called St. Brendan's Way. And then I feel like Crossroads, which is our summer ale, by style, it's a cream ale.
Yeah.
And so when we were brewing it at home, the working name of it was Your Mother's Mustache. And that obviously wasn't really going to fly in the commercial world.
I mean, I would like to see that in the commercial world, but I completely
That
understand.
sounds like
Yeah.
what's that brewery from up in Kentucky?
Against the Grain?
Against the Grain. Yeah, it seems like
close.
it seems like a name that they would have.
Man, they make such good beer, but all
Yeah.
their
All
name
their
labels
can,
and stuff
all
are
their
so
can
gross.
designs are just like, oh gosh, what am I looking at?
Yeah, that was Crossroads, because a cream ale really sort of sits at the crossroads of lager and ale.
Yeah.
And plus it's a cream ale, and cream was really the one who brought that song Crossroads to the forefront. So
Right.
we've had several beers over time that have had song titles that have influenced their naming convention. Our pale ale was actually called The Champion, which was named after a buddy of mine was in a band here in town called The Champion and His Burning Flame.
Okay.
So it was
They didn't make it.
very, very small reference that nobody...
No one ever will get it.
will ever get,
They were
yeah.
an indie rock band, and they asked us to brew a beer for their record release party. And so
Oh,
John
really?
and I brewed it, and
That's
went over
pretty
there
cool.
and poured it at their event.
So the band has discontinued, but the beer still flows.
Oh, the beer's retired too.
Is it really?
Is it really?
That's my, yeah, it's got a little retirement plaque up there. on the
Oh,
wall.
20,
Oh, so
it
you guys
stopped
are
in
done-
2019.
Are
Oh.
done brewing it.
Yeah, we just
Darn.
well, I wouldn't say it's not dead. We didn't have a funeral. It's just retired. It's on
Yeah.
vacation for a while.
vacation.
On vacation for a while.
It's a nice hiatus.
Is that
Exactly.
just to make room for different avenues, or
TNIPA really has sort of
Okay.
stepped into that
Okay.
role. I think pale ales are an increasingly difficult style to market.
yeah, there are quite a few pale ales out there.
Yeah, and people right now are.
It's
you know,
almost becoming like the lager. of-
juicy is selling and bitter is not, and so I think that there's a definitive market for what TNIPA is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas Champion needed a breather.
It's, yeah.
Got it.
Back to music. I had been in here maybe a year or two ago for a tour,
Yeah,
and I'm fairly certain I was on your tour,
it's possible.
and we stopped about halfway through so you could go flip a record. That was
Yes.
slang.
So we used to play vinyl in here on Saturdays all the time.
Yes.
And then it got to the point where we were having to stop tours to go flip records. And
But I actually appreciated that. I thought I was touched because I love vinyl.
I like it. It became increasingly more complicated.
Yeah.
Especially for the bar staff, because once, let's be honest, after I was 2 or 3 tours in, I was half in the bag. And
Yeah.
then I was not really paying attention to what was
Yeah.
going on with the music. And so then the bartenders would have to go back and change the records. And we had a bartender that has some sort of like record player phobia.
Oh,
and she
no,
didn't
really?
want to touch it and was afraid she was going to break it. Which if she's afraid she's going to break it, she's going to break it.
She's gonna break
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So
For
it
sure.
just got to the point where it was like, all right, do we hire someone whose job it is to turn records, Or maybe we should not.
Designated
Maybe we should not.
record
So
flipper.
have you officially retired records?
No.
Vinyl from
No, we still play
Saturdays?
vinyl in here from time to time, but we don't play vinyl every Saturday like we used to.
Okay. Just
Actually,
on special occasions.
I'm going to get real conspiratorial.
Ooh.
So I'm going up to my in-laws over the next couple of weeks here for the 4th, and my mother-in-law has got one of those old record players with the arm where it'll drop like multiple platters.
Yeah.
That piece of shit is coming back with me. She doesn't know it. She's never going to notice. But that is coming back in the van, man. It is coming back. And when that comes back, see, then what we're going to do is we're going to roll out this little program that I've thought up called Side Tuesday, where we will just play records, only side 2, all night on Tuesday
Only
night.
side 2.
And then, because
I
then we
like
could just
that.
stack like 5 or 6 of them up there on the same thing.
You don't have to
This
worry.
is the first I've heard of it. And it is freaking brilliant.
It's hilarious.
I think it is
Right?
too.
It's hilarious. So we can do Side
I
Tuesday.
think that works well.
And then we're back
Really
in
well.
spinning records in here, and
You
we don't
gotta
have.
flip.
You only got to change it once every 2 hours. So maybe
Funny.
you pull
I like it.
8 or 9 records out at the beginning of the shift, throw 4 of them on.
And it's only side 2.
Yeah, it's like 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30
Clever.
minutes, 30 minutes. and
Very
then you're
clever.
good.
Very funny.
I like that.
Side Tuesday. Look for it at Sitco Drive coming soon.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll keep my eye out for that because that sounds awesome. But I remember we were listening to Dark Side of the Moon in particular on that tour.
I love Pink Floyd. To the point where like my wife is scared.
Oh, geez.
There was a period of time when I was in college where I watched The Wall like every day for a month.
That's
And
the wall's something else.
my
The
roommate
movie.
called my then girlfriend, now wife. It's like, you need to come over to the apartment because Carl shaved his eyebrows off like Bob Geldof, which I did not. It was a joke, but it was completely believable. But yeah, I love Pink Floyd.
Funny.
Yeah, Pink Floyd gets pretty out there the more you dive into their deeper cuts too.
Yeah, we were talking on Dad Rock Block the other day about bands where they added a member or changed a member. It didn't have to be a singer, but just a member that radically made the band better.
Yeah.
And Neil Peart was one of those. When he joined Rush, I offered up Bruce Dickinson when he joined Iron Maiden. But like Syd Barrett in Pink Floyd really brought a strangeness and a creative energy to that band. But they didn't really, they weren't really great until they brought in Dave Gilmour.
Yes.
I mean, David Gilmour really solidified that band into the powerhouse that it is.
As far as guitar players go, David Gilmour he's very unique.
Right.
Like the solos that he does, it's not like flashy.
Yeah.
He doesn't shred, but
But his sound and his tone.
it's unmistakably David Gilmour,
yeah.
and he's a phenomenal guitar player.
If you can have that in the music
Yeah.
industry, that's pretty big.
I think he's got a lot of tact.
Tact.
I think
And it's
that'd be a good word.
I feel like there's only a handful of like rock guitarists where I would put him in that category.
Yeah.
It's like Clapton, Gilmour,
Clapton was the first name I was gonna compare to.
and Mark Knopfler and Eddie Van Halen, right? And then
I mean, you have like the Edge as well. Everybody knows U2. the
yes,
U2
you would
sound.
never mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you think about the shred guys like
Yeah.
Chris Impellitteri or Yngwie Malmsteen or Tony McAlpine and those guys, and take nothing away from what they do. But when you hear Eddie Van Halen play,
it's Eddie Van
Right.
Halen.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
the same is true of Gilmour. Same is true of Clapton. And I think those guys
Very difficult to create a style of playing leads that's
Yeah.
indistinguishable.
That's very unique to
Yep.
that one
Yep.
person.
Because we both play guitar, and I learned to solo by playing other people's riffs.
right.
Yeah. So if I play a guitar solo, it doesn't sound like me. It sounds like
Someone else.
a collection of other people.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So it's hard. It's really difficult to set yourself apart that way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
You can really appreciate it when you hear somebody like David Gilmour.
I do actually really like the Sid Barrett stuff. Some of it's just so peculiar and weird, but he really was a real talent, even though it was mostly LSD fueled.
Well, a lot of that era too.
That Saucer Full of Secrets book is sitting in, here it is right there. My little Pink Floyd biography is sitting right in the library where we're taping this podcast.
Full of Secrets. The Pink Floyd Odyssey.
Never read it.
They should read it. It's weird.
It's good.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird.
Weird but good.
That, I mean, they were like, "Oh, we need some new material. Put some acid in Sid's tea." Like, you know, so much of that stuff, the "Shine On You, Crazy Diamond," and all of those records that Waters wrote, is because of his overwhelming guilt for effectively killing Sid Barrett.
Wow, yeah.
Because that's, you know, they were buddies, and he was a lot funnier when he was high, and so they would just dope him up.
Wow.
Yeah, they definitely utilize that.
But looking forward to the future of Black Abbey.
Yeah.
As we come to the end of this episode, is there anything that we should know about the future of Black Abbey? Goals,
Black Abbey,
new beers, anything else?
in the future. I mean, I think that the days of creating national brands are pretty well behind us.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think
for sure.
we really have any aspiration to be a brand that has the kind of reach that somebody like Sierra Nevada or Stone has.
Yeah.
I think that it's very important to... A lot of people would say own your home market, but I don't think that that's really accurate. I think it's more of a, you know, to be a strong operator and participant in your local scene. And I think for us, that scene incorporates the entire state of Tennessee. It's not just Nashville, but you know, we're very proud to be a Nashville brand, but also to be a Tennessee brand. And so I wouldn't expect, you know, to hear an announcement from Black Abbey that we're, you know, immediately expanding to send beer to Idaho or somewhere.
Right.
Nothing against you, Idaho.
Idahoans?
Love you in Idaho.
We like Idaho. We like the potatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that, you know, that we'll continue to, you know, focus on our identity as a Tennessee brand.
Right.
To come up with creative collaborations. A couple of things that we have on tap right now are collabs. So we did a collab with a brewery in Knoxville called Crafty Bastard, and that is we use that Quebec yeast. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it's an insane yeast strain. It ferments at like 95 degrees and throws off no phenols, and it was done in 3 days.
Wow.
Like grain to
That's wild.
glass on that beer was 5 days. Nuts.
Wow. That's pretty crazy.
I've
So
never
that's-
heard of that yeast, but that's insane to imagine that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry for you folks listening at home. We're going to drink that one after the show. But Secret History it was a really cool collab. 100% lemon drop hops, so it's really citrusy and fun.
Yeah.
And then we also brewed a collab with Chris Mason and Hal Gill, who are broadcasters. Hal with the radio, Chris with TV for the Nashville Predators.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Chris is a big, he likes sweet beer. He likes Hefty's, fruit beers and whatnot. But Hal is a real hophead. He likes IPAs. And so we made a milkshake IPA. So
there you go.
lactose infused.
Interesting.
Sweet and hoppy.
All late ward hops. So it's all pineapples and kiwi in the nose. And that, we call it bag chucker. And so Hal and Chris, when they travel all over the world with Predators, and they made this joke that their objective is to get off the bus, throw their bag in the hotel room, and get down to the hotel bar as fast as possible. And it became a race. And they were down there drinking one day, and Hal was like, "Look at us, bunch of bag chuckers." And then it's a hashtag, and then it's a website, and then they're making shirts.
Cool.
I like that.
They've got a Twitter handle. Like they made a hilarious video where Hal. I don't know if y'all have ever seen Hal Gill, but he's an enormous man. Like he's got to be 6'7". He's a big dude. And so He comes around the hall, comes around the corner in the hotel hallway, opens his hotel room door, hurls his bag into the room, and then turns around, and Willie Donick, who's the play-by-play for Preds TV, is standing there, and Hal literally checks him into his room. Like, hit him so hard that he dropped his drinks and he flew through the door into his hotel room. And I asked him about it when they were here the other day, and I was like, was that staged? And he's like, well, we were trying to stage it, but Willie got a little more than he bargained for. Like, he got his clock cleaned.
That's pretty funny.
But it's turned into this hilarious thing, and so I had Hal on the radio show, and he was like, when are we going to make a bag chucker beer? And I was like, I don't know, now?
Nice.
And so we tried to combine what Hal likes and what Chris likes into this style, and it really turned out great.
I like that.
Milkshake IPA is the perfect combo of both of those then.
Yeah, and it's lactose, so it emphasizes the kind of malt foundation of the beer. It's not really bitter at all, and is really bright and juicy, and
nice.
It's 6.5%, so you can drink a couple of them and not die. Maybe people are lactose intolerant out there.
Oh yeah. Well, I personally am, but I still drink any beer that has lactose in it.
Well, you still eat cheese.
I also still eat
ice
cheese.
cream.
Yeah. No, I have dairy-free ice cream.
Oh, fair enough.
So
That sounds terrible. That's like not alcoholic.
it's not bad.
beer.
Yeah,
It's not bad.
It sounds odd. When I think of dairy-free ice cream, I just think of sherbet.
Sherbet? Hey, sherbet's good.
But before we close off, any shameless plugs? Anything you guys would
Like
yes.
Black Abbey.
drink?
Yeah.
That's as shameless as it gets.
We're doing a product release at the brewery on July 13th. It's a
July
Saturday.
13th. Okay.
It's a barrel-aged Belgian Dark Strong.
Oh.
It's called Hope and Faith. We're releasing it both on draft and in 4-pack 12-ounce cans.
Awesome.
And so that'll be Saturday the 13th. No limit, so come and buy as much as you want. But
Only 66 cases, maybe?
yeah, so
66
don't let the
cases,
sun set on
alright.
that. I
Fairly
wouldn't
low.
be late.
Sounds interesting.
By the time we're releasing this episode, this will be next week, so that'll
Yeah.
be
It'll
this
be-
upcoming weekend
Yep.
that release is happening.
Got a really great food truck will be here that day called Southern Spoon. Their food is terrific, so it should be a really fun day.
I mean, there's not much better than limited releases in food trucks.
Yep. And then on the last Monday of July, which I think is the 28th or 29th,
Sounds about right. Yeah.
the Dad Rock Block is broadcasting live from Metal Monday at Melrose Billiards. And so
All right.
Melrose Billiards, which is a pool hall on 8th Avenue right below the Sutler.
Yes.
Every Monday, they do what they call Metal Monday, where they play only metal music, and it's half off Black Abbey beer and $4 Jameson shots.
Wow.
And so on the last Monday of the month, they do a more focused effort, and oftentimes they give stuff away. And so we're giving away 4 tickets for August Burns Red.
Oh, okay.
They're playing
Nice.
at Marathon Music Works early in August, and so we'll
Okay.
give away a couple of tickets to that. And Dad Rock Block will be there broadcasting live, spinning metal vinyl
Awesome.
Very nice.
from 10 to midnight. So
And where can people check out Dad Block Rock?
if you go to acmeradiolive.com and search Dad Rock Block, all of the episodes are archived there.
Awesome.
And again, that's Isaiah and I who handle the sales for Black Abbey. We have a radio show on the internet, so there might be some swearing, and there's oftentimes a large amount of drinking.
Yeah. Okay.
all good things, all allowed on the internet for
Yep,
now.
All
yep.
allowed on the
For
internet.
now. Hope
I-
that
I
does
don't-
not change.
I don't think it's going to change. The internet's too big to
I really
regulate.
hope it doesn't.
Yeah, but the brewery is located at 2952 Sidco Drive, which is on the south side of Nashville, right off the Armory exit of 65.
Very short drive if you're staying downtown Nashville. You can get there very quickly.
Yep.
Yep.
If you
Our-
are visiting, if you live here, definitely come check it out.
Yep, our tap room's open 7 days a week, 3:30 to 8 on the weekend. On weekdays, we open at noon on the weekends. So stop by and say hey.
Well, thank you guys so much for having us, Carl and
No problem.
John. Right?
Glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much.
Great.
Here's a theme song, you know it's not a mean song. It's a good song, just as it should song. American brews and tunes. Shibbity